They say when you know, you know. But nobody ever tells you what to do when you almost know. When the hairs on the back of your neck start to rise for no good reason. When your gut has the courtesy to ring the doorbell, but you tell it to come back later because you're just too busy pretending everything is fine. I wasn't supposed to be home early. But fate, traffic, and an unusually efficient project meeting handed me 2 extra hours of daylight and a long drive home humming along to classic rock like life was still mine to enjoy. The house was unusually quiet when I pulled into the driveway. No barking dog. No clatter of dishes. No welcome home peck on the cheek from a woman who, 6 years earlier, said my name like it was her favorite song. Instead, I saw candlelight flickering through the dining room window. A tablecloth. Wine glasses. Soft jazz from the Bluetooth speaker we bought during our Spice Things Up phase. For a heartbeat, I smiled. I thought maybe she was doing something sweet. A spontaneous dinner. Maybe an apology. Maybe a celebration for nothing in particular, which is the best kind. But then I saw the plates, 2 of them, set across from each other. And neither one had the blue ceramic salad bowl I always used. That was when my stomach turned. That was when something crawled into my spine and whispered, "This dinner is not for you, Logan." I stepped inside. The smell hit first, saffron and garlic, something simmering on the stove. The kind of smell that tells you someone's gone to trouble, that they cared. And it would have meant something if that someone had been me. "Ashley," I called out. No answer. Just the soft saxophone playing like a sleazy alibi. I walked past the kitchen island, noting a bottle of Merlot breathing open on the counter. The same one I'd picked up for our anniversary last year. She hated red wine. Said it gave her headaches. But now? Now it was opened and breathing like it knew something I didn't. I followed the music toward the dining room, a quiet war playing out in my chest. Part of me hoping this was all some weird surprise, the other part hoping she wasn't home at all. And then I heard it, a giggle. Soft. Intimate. Not the kind you give your husband when he forgets to take the trash out. The kind you save for someone who hasn't seen you in your worst pajamas. The kind you never want to hear in your own home. I froze at the hallway corner, just shy of the dining room. Their shadows danced on the wall, her silhouette leaning in, his broader one towering slightly above hers. Forks clinked. Glasses touched. And then, just as casually as if he owned the place. "Did he say when he'd be back?" Her voice was soft, rehearsed. "Not before 8. I didn't walk in. Not yet. I didn't speak. Didn't scream. Didn't storm. I just stood there in my own home, watching my wife serve dinner to a stranger by candlelight. And I realized something that would stick with me for years. Sometimes betrayal doesn't walk in with boots and fireworks. Sometimes it lights a candle. I could have walked in right then. Could have made a scene. But something in me, maybe the last shred of dignity, said, "Wait. Watch." And so I did. From the hallway, just past the frame, I had the perfect view of them without being seen. She was radiant in that subtle, effortless way women get when they're performing. Her dress was simple, but she wore it like she wanted to be noticed. Hair curled. Nails done. No slippers. Just heels she hadn't worn for me in over a year. The man across from her had one of those faces that looked like it came with its own cologne ad. Tanned, clean-shaven, with the kind of jawline that could cut marble. He smiled like the room owed him something. They were already halfway through dinner. Her laugh came too easy. His hand, resting just a little too comfortably near hers. "You really cooked all this?" he asked, gesturing at the table. Ashley smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear in a move I knew too well. "Well, technically, yes. But you inspired it." Inspired it. What a charming way to say you were on my mind when I stirred the sauce. My jaw tightened. I felt the faintest pull of my heartbeat in my ears, but I kept my feet planted. Then came the knife and the ribs, swift, clean, unsharpened by guilt. "Logan used to love this dish," she said casually. "But he always added too much salt. Not my husband. Not Logan and I used to. Just Logan. Past tense. Like a phase she'd outgrown." He chuckled. "Well, sounds like he had good taste, but no palate." I could have sworn the house leaned sideways with that one. Ashley didn't defend me. Didn't flinch. Just took another bite of steak and sipped from her wine glass like this was their 3rd or 4th dinner, not the first. I stepped back from the wall. My heartbeat was loud now, but my mind was sharper than ever. Rage is a funny thing. It can make you act fast or think faster. I chose the latter. I didn't barge in. I didn't confront. I didn't turn that evening into a soap opera. I slipped out the front door like a whisper. Got in my car. Drove 5 blocks down. Parked. Then I called her. The phone rang once. Twice. "Hey, babe," she answered, her voice instantly switching gears like I was just some background noise she forgot to mute. Hey, I said, keeping my voice steady. Just checking in. Meeting ran late. I'll be home in maybe 20 minutes. Oh, she said, and I swear I could hear her mentally folding the situation into some neat little panic box. Okay, no rush. Take your time. I won't, I said. See you soon. I hung up. Then I waited. Lights still on. Jazz still playing. After a minute, I saw his silhouette stand. Her voice floated through the open window, sharper now. You need to go. He's on his way. Another minute later, the front door opened and out he came, Mr. Tasteful Jawline, slipping his jacket over that crisp, ego-flavored shirt of his. I watched him stroll down the sidewalk, no urgency, just the swagger of a man who'd been given dessert before the check. I memorized his face. Not for now. For later. I didn't go home that night. I slept in my truck under the stars, a blanket of silence wrapped around a growing fire in my chest. Because in that moment, something inside me shifted. I wasn't going to confront them. Not yet. First, I was going to understand exactly who this man was. Then I was going to build something that looked a lot like closure, but would taste an awful lot like revenge. I didn't sleep. Not really. I watched the sky turn from charcoal to pale gray through the windshield of my truck. The same sunrise that used to feel like a beginning now just felt like proof that I was still here. Still breathing. Still in a marriage that, apparently, had 2 seats, one of which wasn't mine. I drove home around 6 a.m. The house looked normal. Too normal. Like it hadn't hosted a private betrayal just hours before. Ashley was in the kitchen, robe on, acting like she hadn't just reset the terms of our entire relationship. Morning, she said, pouring coffee with a casualness that nearly made me laugh. You're up early. I nodded. Got in late. Crashed in the truck. She didn't even blink. Didn't ask why. Just slid a mug across the counter like we were 2 coworkers grabbing coffee before a staff meeting. Everything okay? She asked, not making eye contact. I sipped the coffee. Not really. She paused, hand on the fridge door. What's wrong? I stared at her. Do you really want me to answer that? For half a second, I saw the flicker. That tiny panic in her eyes. But she buried it under a forced smile. Logan, if this is about work stress again, I think we should talk. I cut her off. No, it's not about work. It's about the guy who left our house last night after you fed him my wine and used my candles. Dead silence. Her hand dropped from the fridge. The performance ended. She stood there, completely still. Eyes wide, breath shallow. The guilty-free frame of someone who just realized the car behind them wasn't slowing down. Who is he? I asked. Calm. Controlled. Like I was ordering a coffee, not excavating the wreckage of my marriage. She swallowed. It's not what you think. That classic line. Always the first thing people say when it's exactly what you think. I saw you, I said. Not a guess. Not a suspicion. I was there. Her shoulders sank, like the truth weighed more than she expected. His name is Daniel, she said quietly. We met at the art exhibit downtown. A few months ago. Art. Of course. I should have known betrayal would wear a scarf and appreciate brushstrokes. So this has been going on for months? She nodded. No excuses. No justifications. Just a quiet admission like she was surrendering a stolen item. And you were going to tell me? When? Ashley didn't answer. Right. I muttered. Never. She looked up then. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Another classic. You lit candles, I said. You plated dinner. You were perfume I haven't smelled on you in 2 years. This wasn't a mistake. This was a reservation. Her face twisted, pain, guilt, maybe shame. But none of it mattered now. I wasn't here for a breakdown. I was here for confirmation. Now I had it. Logan, she began, but I held up a hand. Don't. Just don't. I walked out of the kitchen and down the hall, straight into the guest room. Pulled open the drawer I hadn't touched in months. Inside was the manila folder I'd kept like an insurance policy I hoped I'd never need. Bank statements. Text logs. Hotel receipts. And a photo. Ashley and Daniel. Taken by someone who wasn't supposed to be watching. Her hand on his chest. His lips on her cheek. All time-stamped. All documented. This wasn't heartbreak. This was evidence. I closed the folder slowly. Because now that I had the truth, it was time to start writing my own ending. And trust me, he was going to regret ever liking modern art. The thing about betrayal is, once it's confirmed, everything before it starts to reframe itself. You start remembering things differently. Replaying old scenes like a detective watching footage, pausing, rewinding, noticing what you missed. The perfume she stopped wearing. The laughter that came too easily. The dinner with coworkers that left her glowing and full, while the takeout I'd ordered for us went cold. It wasn't love that died between us. It was respect. Quietly. Slowly. Like carbon monoxide. I stood in the guest room for a long time, the folders still open on the desk. My fingers tapped against the wood. My breathing stayed steady. No yelling. No smashing things. That would have made me feel like I was out of control. And if there was one thing I decided right then, it was that I wasn't going to lose control. I was going to take it back. She had been planning this affair like a side hustle. Neat little details, hidden compartments. But unlike her, I never cheated. I paid attention. And now? Now it was time to cash in on everything I'd noticed, everything I'd kept to myself while she thought I was too dull to matter. I pulled out a notepad and started listing names. Not hers. Not his. Their circle. Friends. Colleagues. Anyone who had smiled at me during parties while knowing she was sneaking off to see Daniel. Anyone who'd raised a glass in our kitchen, knowing they were toasting to my humiliation. Then I made another list. Assets. Joint accounts. Property. The lake cabin she thought I'd forgotten about. And finally, her soft spots. Ashley had 3 weaknesses. Appearances. She liked to look perfect. Control. She liked to steer the narrative. Daniel. Or more accurately, the fantasy of Daniel, the man who let her feel like she was 25 again without the burden of our shared past. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to hit. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to ruin the fantasy. I spent the rest of the day in silence. Ashley hovered near the kitchen, not saying much, clearly unsure if she was supposed to grovel or pretend nothing happened. She made tea she didn't drink. Folded already folded towels. Rearranged the mail pile. I said nothing. Around 5 p.m., I left. Told her I had errands. She didn't ask where I was going, but she watched me like a deer watches a car that hasn't swerved yet. I drove downtown and parked across from Daniel's gallery. Yes, he had a gallery. Of course he did. One of those minimalist, pretentious places with black trim and abstract sculptures that looked like expensive plumbing accidents. His name was on the glass in gold serif font, Daniel Keats Studio. You know what you never see in those places? Janitors. Security cameras. Anyone who isn't holding a glass of Chardonnay and pretending to understand existentialism. But I wasn't there to make a scene. I was there to study him. Daniel stepped outside just after 6 o'clock, locking up with a little flourish like he thought the city owed him a round of applause. He wore a scarf even though it was 68 degrees and had that glossy-haired, I-make-my-own-schedule walk. He climbed into a navy Audi coupe, leased, judging by the sticker in the corner of the windshield, and pulled away. I followed. Not close enough to spook him. Just enough to know where he was headed. Turns out, Daniel lived in a condo downtown. Top floor. Views of the river. Probably thinks that justifies the rent. I parked a block away, jotted the address down, and left. But I wasn't done. Next stop, the county courthouse. You don't need drama when you've got records. I pulled property deeds. Marriage license. Prenup details. Fun fact, we didn't have one. Even better fact? I still had power of attorney on some of Ashley's accounts. She made me co-manager when we bought the house because I was so good with paperwork. Sometimes being the boring one pays off. Back home, Ashley was sitting at the dining room table, the same one she'd used for her dinner date with Daniel. "How was your day?" she asked, voice small. I shrugged. "Productive." She nodded slowly. "Are you gonna talk to me?" I walked past her. Eventually, I could feel the frustration building in her. She wanted a fight, a release, a reason to paint me as the bad guy who wouldn't forgive her. But I wasn't going to give her that storyline. Instead, I spent the next week building my case, digitally and emotionally. I moved into the guest room permanently. No more shared coffee. No more asking about her day. I became a ghost in my own house, and she hated it. Ashley wanted chaos because chaos would give her something to blame. But silence? Silence made her sit in her own choices. Every night she'd try to talk. Apologize in half measures. Blame stress. Blame routine. Blame our lack of excitement. And I'd just nod. Then finally, one morning over breakfast, she cracked. "Are we just gonna pretend this isn't happening forever?" I folded the newspaper. "Nope. Just until I'm ready." "Ready for what?" I looked at her, calm, cold. "To decide what part of your life I want to keep." She stared like I'd slapped her. "Excuse me. You heard me." That day, I transferred my money to a solo account. Froze our joint cards. Scheduled a meeting with a lawyer, one who owed me a favor. I didn't burn bridges. I built exits. And I didn't touch Daniel. Not yet. Because revenge isn't about the first punch. It's about the last one. Some mint storm out. I planned a brunch. A week after Ashley's confession, I sent out invites. Digital. Polite. Carefully worded like a birthday or retirement party. A thank you gathering, I called it. Casual, backyard, nothing too fancy. Bring a dish if you feel inclined. Ashley was confused. We're hosting something? I smiled like I just learned how. Yeah, we owe a few people some closure. I could see the gears turning behind her eyes, panic stirring behind the practiced calm. But she didn't object. She didn't dare. Not with me walking around the house like a man with a secret tattooed under his skin. She even helped prepare. That's the funny thing, guilt will make people try to overcompensate. She baked lemon bars, bought matching paper napkins, even ironed the patio tablecloth. It was almost sweet, if it hadn't all felt like a eulogy with canapes. The guest list was tight. Daniel's art friends, Ashley's coworkers, a few of our friends, the ones I suspected already knew but stayed silent, and my lawyer, posing as my old college buddy Jake. The sun came out like it had RSVP'd. By noon, the yard was full of laughter and mimosa glasses. Ashley floated between conversations like everything was fine, like the cracks in our marriage hadn't already swallowed the foundation. She wore that coral dress I bought her last year. The one she said was too nice to waste on a regular date. Guess this counted as a regular. I let her play hostess. I even made small talk, standing in the shade with my drink and an easy grin. Everyone thought I was the picture of grace. And maybe I was. But grace is just a sharp knife in a velvet box. Once everyone had eaten and settled into clumps of conversation, I tapped my glass. Hey, everyone, I said warmly. Thanks for coming. This won't take long. Ashley glanced at me from across the patio, smile still fixed but eyes narrowing. She knew that voice. The one I used when I was about to say something I couldn't take back. I wanted to say a few words. Not because I'm good at speeches, but because I'm a fan of clarity. I held up a glass. To honesty, I said. A few people raised theirs. To accountability. Fewer followed. And to endings, because sometimes they matter just as much as beginnings. I paused, letting the silence carry weight. Ashley stepped forward slightly. Logan, maybe. I held up a hand. Don't worry. I'm not going to raise my voice. I'm just going to raise a curtain. And then I pulled a small stack of envelopes from my back pocket. Each one was addressed. Names written in my neat, slow handwriting. Each guest got one. Inside? A polite, tasteful announcement. Ashley and I will be separating. For those who know why, I appreciate your discretion. For those who don't, feel free to ask her. She's quite the storyteller. There were photos too. Tastefully printed. A few receipts. One hotel confirmation from a weekend. I told her I was in Phoenix visiting my brother. I wasn't. I was in town. In a rented car. Across the street from the Hotel Mirabelle, watching Daniel's hand rest on the small of her back like he paid rent there. Someone in the crowd gasped. Another stifled a laugh. I saw someone in her department glance away, clearly trying not to meet Ashley's eyes. Daniel wasn't there. He was out of town, hosting some artsy retreat in Napa with his clients. Convenient. Ashley's face had gone white. She stepped toward me, hand trembling. You're humiliating me. I smiled gently. No, you did that already. I'm just giving you the audience you left me out of. Gasps again. Some folks got up to leave. A couple stayed for the show. You learn a lot about people when things get awkward. She looked at me, something cracking behind her eyes. This was cruel. No, I said, my voice soft but steady. This was precise. I turned to the crowd. I'm moving out tomorrow. If you need to reach me, I'll be at the cabin. You know, the one Ashley said was too boring to visit. I raised the glass again. To new beginnings. And I left. Not in a rage. Not in a storm. Just left. The cabin was cold, even in summer. That old pine scent hit me as I opened the door. Dusty shelves. Clean sheets. Silence that didn't feel like punishment. I poured a drink and sat by the window. My phone buzzed. 10 missed calls. 14 texts. Ashley. A few coworkers. One from Daniel. You didn't have to do that. I didn't respond. Not yet. Because this wasn't revenge. Not yet. This was just notice. 3 days passed before I sent the letter. Not because I hesitated, but because timing is everything. A message sent in anger says more about the sender. A message sent after silence? that lands different. It sticks. Daniel came back from Napa on Thursday. I know this because I watched him roll his designer suitcase into his condo lobby on the building's security feed. No, I didn't hack it. I asked nicely. The doorman, Jack, thought I was his older brother. Said I needed to check in on the artist before Mom's birthday. Funny how trusting people can be when you smile like you've got nothing left to lose. That night, I addressed the envelope by hand. Daniel Keats, self-proclaimed creative genius. Number 902, Riverbend Towers. Inside was a letter. No threats. No anger. Just facts. Dear Daniel. First off, relax. No surprises on your doorstep. No dramatics. I'm not the type to stand outside with a baseball bat or a broken-hearted playlist. I figured a man like you appreciates written communication. Classy. Measured. Literate. You and I haven't formally met. But I've seen enough. I saw your hand resting on my wife's lower back. I saw your car outside the Hotel Mirabelle the night Ashley told me she was working late. I saw the text you sent her with the sketch of her face, captioned Muse. Strong word. But then again, I guess it's easy to be poetic when someone else's vows are holding your relationship together. You've probably told yourself a few stories to sleep well at night. Maybe that Ashley and I were already falling apart. Maybe that you're just a guy who followed his heart. Let me save you the effort. She lied to you. I say that not in defense of myself, but for your own good. If you're going to build something with her, you should at least do it on bedrock, not soft sand. Here's what you don't know. Ashley and I weren't in a dying marriage. We were in a quiet one. And quiet isn't the same as broken. It's what long-term looks like when life piles on bills, routines, and the comfort of someone knowing your coffee order without asking. But you don't want comfort, do you? You want tension, novelty. Someone who laughs at your stories because she hasn't heard them 3 times already. Someone who doesn't know how you look when you're sick, or when your confidence dips below the Instagram version of yourself. That's fine. I'm not here to win her back. I'm not here to fight for what's already walked out the door. I just want you to know one thing. You weren't the villain in my story. You were the punchline. The moment you stepped into my house, drank from my wine glasses, and let her serve you lasagna on plates I picked out from crate and barrel, that was your moment. Your apex. You were king for a night in a castle you didn't build. I hope you enjoyed it. Because everything after that? That's mine. I own the fallout. I own the timing of every reveal. I own the conversation you're going to have with your patrons when they find out your name is wrapped up in someone else's divorce. See, I CC'd a few people on my brunch announcement. Art dealers. Local sponsors. The council that awarded you that arts grant. I didn't accuse. I simply posed the question, should a man who builds his name on integrity be building relationships on lies? Your reputation will be fine. Probably. But just enough of a smudge to make them wonder. People love stories. And scandal is just art with teeth. But here's the part one really want you to take in. You weren't special. Not to her. There was one before you. A graphic designer from Portland. And another. A consultant from Chicago. I've got the receipts. Literally. You're not the grand romantic she left everything for. You're a layover. I say that not to wound your ego, though let's not pretend it won't sting, but because I know how this goes. She'll tell you she's never felt this way before. That you see her. That I didn't. And you'll believe her because we always want to believe the story that makes us the hero. But you're not the hero, Daniel. You're the intermission. And I'm the credits. Good luck with the rest of the show. Warmly. Logan. I mailed it from a tiny post office off a county road with no security cameras and a clerk who looked like she hated small talk. Perfect. Back at the cabin, I poured a drink, sat on the deck, and waited. Not for a response. I didn't need one. Men like Daniel don't write back. They stew. They break things off and blame it on artistic direction. Or they double down and end up with a woman who, one day, gets bored and lights candles for someone else. Ashley texted me the next day. What did you send him? I didn't answer. I sent her a thumbs-up emoji and blocked the number. Because sometimes silence is the loudest sentence. It took 3 days for Daniel to disappear. Ashley didn't say much. But I heard from a mutual acquaintance, her coworker Lisa, who accidentally forwarded me an email meant for someone else. Classic Lisa. Daniel had canceled a gallery showing. No explanation. No press release. Just gone. Ashley, meanwhile, began a one-woman campaign to regain control of the narrative. She called my sister, emailed my boss, posted a suspiciously upbeat Instagram story showing our wedding photo with the caption, "Some chapters are complicated." Complicated. That's a delicate little word to sweep infidelity under the rug like it's a billing error. People started choosing sides. Friends fell off the radar. A few reached out quietly, sending neutral texts like, "Hey man, thinking of you. Hope you're good." I responded the same way every time. "I am. Hope you're choosing peace." Because peace is loud when you've earned it. Back at the house, Ashley finally reached the last step in the post-affair process, bargaining. She called me one evening, new number. I answered out of morbid curiosity. "You've made your point," she said. I almost laughed. "You think this was about making a point?" Her voice dropped. "What do you want, Logan?" And that's when I told her. "I want you to live with the choices you made," I said. Not in shame, not in exile. Just in honesty. I let the silence hang between us like fog. "I'm not going to destroy you, Ashley. I'm not like that. But I'm also not going to insulate you from the consequences anymore." I said I was sorry, she snapped, trying to sound wounded. I stayed quiet. That always rattled her more than anything. "I made a mistake." "No," I corrected. "You made a decision. Over and over. With intention. Mistakes don't require hotel reservations and fresh perfume." Silence again. Then she tried a different angle. "You still love me." I didn't respond. Because it wasn't a question. It was a trapdoor. One I'd already stepped through and climbed out of months ago, back when I realized love doesn't survive where respect dies. "I filed the papers," I said. "You'll get them Monday. I've waived spousal support. I don't want the house. You keep it." A pause. "Why?" she asked, suspicious. "Because it'll never be home again for me. But for you? It's going to be a monument." "To what?" "To everything you threw away." And then I hung up. I returned to the house one last time. Not for drama. Just to collect the rest of my things. It was quiet. Still. Like the aftermath of a storm that knocked down every tree in the yard but left the garden untouched. A strange, artificial peace. Ashley wasn't home. She'd left a note on the kitchen island. "Please take what you want. I'll be staying at Lacey's for a while." You were right. About everything. There was no, "I miss you." No plea. Just those 7 words. You were right. About everything. I walked through the house slowly, room by room. My clothes. My books. The toolbox. The broken drawer I always meant to fix but never got around to. Then I got to the garden. The one I built from scratch in our 2nd year of marriage, when we still believed in seasons and soil and the idea that anything, if nurtured, could last. The garden was dead. Neglected. Dry stems and forgotten roots. I stood there for a while. No anger. No poetry. Just the quiet understanding that this was never going to grow again. So I took one last look and left. 1 year later, I woke up early. No alarm. Just the light streaming in through new windows. A new house. Smaller. Simpler. Mine. The divorce finalized cleanly. The mutual friends divided like belongings, some drifting toward her, a few holding on to me, most just disappearing into the fog. I don't talk about her anymore. Not because I'm bitter, but because she's a chapter that closed itself. Sometimes people ask if I ever saw Daniel again. Once. 6 months ago. At a gas station, of all places. He looked thinner. Older. Worn out in a way you don't see in magazine profiles or artist bios. He didn't say anything. Neither did I. We just nodded like 2 men acknowledging a moment neither of us would ever claim out loud. These days, I keep my peace like I keep my tools, sharp, organized, and within reach when I need them. And if you're wondering whether I ever got revenge, I did. But not the way people expect. I didn't break him. I didn't break her. I just let the truth stand there tall, silent, and undeniable. And then I walked away from it all. Not out of weakness, but because there is no better revenge than becoming someone they can't hurt anymore. The end.